Minecraft is a game about mining and crafting. Quite literally, it's in the name. But to me, Minecraft is mostly about building, and that's been my passion for the last almost 4 years now. I've made hundreds of builds in all different shapes and sizes, and I'm bringing you this long-ass video as an all-in-one place to improve your building skills. And I guarantee you that by watching this entire video, you will be a better builder. Let's get started. Alright, so starting out, I'm gonna quickly cover the things you should always be doing or using when building in Minecraft. The first thing, which I feel a lot of people don't even know about, is to use hotbar saves. This simply lets you put blocks in your hotbar, save it, and then you can reload that whenever you want. For me, this makes building so much more enjoyable because you don't have to spend half of the bloody time looking for blocks. Say you need spruce blocks, bang. Detailing blocks, there they are. My second recommendation is to use shaders to make your builds look better. Now, I am half joking when I say this because a lot of people like to claim certain builds only look good when shaders are on, which, I mean, they're kind of right. The truth is that everything looks like shit without shaders on, so I recommend using them if your PC can run them. And if not, just try using those super simplistic shaders that are potato friendly like Complementary Reimagined. Also, if you want your game to look exactly like mine, luckily I have a video for just that, link in the description. And the last thing I'm going to mention is to use reference images when you build until you're more experienced and can build without them. It's easy to be overwhelmed when you load up Minecraft and say, I'm going to build a medieval house. Then you might say to yourself, where do I start? Or, you know, this is too hard, I give up. My friend, your savior is reference images. Now, when I say reference images, I'm not meaning to use other Minecraft builds as reference. That can be a good way to learn when you're just starting out, but the reference I'm talking about is real-world buildings, 3D models, things from games, etc. Go to Google Images, search whatever your build is, and get a few pictures up. Use elements from each one and make it your own. And also always give credit to whatever you use. And one quick bonus thing that you don't absolutely have to use, but will make your life way easier, is World Edit. It's a mod that allows you to build quickly and easily with commands like set, which allows you to set a specific block in an allocated region, replace, which lets you replace certain blocks with other blocks, and walls, which makes walls. I'll be using World Edit in this video, and if you want to learn how to use it, there's heaps of videos out there, so I recommend giving it a try. Okay, and last bonus tip is I definitely recommend exploring builds yourself and discovering the techniques and details that were used. And for that, I have just the perfect thing, my Patreon. Each tier is able to download my builds, with the highest tier being able to download my entire building world with over 1,000 builds I've created. So be sure to check it out if you want to explore the builds I showcase in this video and further your building skills. Themes are a very important aspect to any Minecraft build. You obviously need to consider what theme and style you want to build in. You've got themes like modern, medieval, Japanese, natural, overgrown, ruined, futuristic, industrial, dark medieval. You know, the list goes on. It may be wise to choose your favorite theme and stick with that to build up a repertoire of designs and details for that particular theme, as I feel that's the most efficient way to improve as a builder. Once you've gotten a grasp of, let's say, medieval builds, then you could branch out and try dark medieval, gothic, Japanese, ruined, overgrown, things like that. But for the sake of this video, I'll mostly be covering the medieval theme, as I feel it's probably the most popular, and it's also my favorite, and I feel I have the most experience in that style, and I don't really want to give advice for things I don't know much about. Okay, so starting off, we're going to talk about block palettes. And just as a little side note, this is my building platform, and this is the first time I've actually been able to see the entire thing, and I think it looks really cool. So once again, if you want your Minecraft to look like mine, I highly recommend checking out the video in the description, okay? But yeah, so back to block palettes, we're starting off with something pretty simple here, where we just have primarily spruce wood and spruce planks used. You can see I have the block palette off to the left here, and yeah, block palettes are honestly a very important aspect to building that I don't even do very well, because as you can see here, and in a lot of my builds, I use predominantly spruce wood and stone, as shown over there, and in, you know, a lot of my builds, okay, so don't judge me. But I do highly recommend actually sticking to some more simplistic block palettes while you're starting out, and then you can branch out to some more complex ones once you've, you know, gotten a grasp of how to build with certain styles more, you know, predominantly, I guess. But yeah, so here's some block palettes shown in actual builds. Here we have like a spruce gate that does look kind of weird. Honestly, I probably would strip a bunch of these spruce wood blocks nowadays. This is quite an old build. But over here you can see another spruce build that's actually done pretty well. We have these like palisade style walls. This is the block palette obviously over here. We just have pretty much 3 blocks throughout this whole thing with a bunch of, you know, accenting spruce blocks. Over here we have like a stone slash a little bit of spruce wood block palette here on this gate, where we've used, yeah, just our texturing with some stone bricks and stone, which we'll get into in another section later on in this video. And we have just a little bit of accenting blocks with some spruce wood trapdoors. We also got some leaves and stuff, and just a bunch more like accenting blocks as well. This next one is a bit of a nether kind of block palette. Another very simple one. We just got deep slate tiles, warped, hi-fi, stripped, whatever it's called, and then warped planks as well, and that gives a very nice kind of blue nether vibe to this one. And then over here we have another stone one, except this time we've utilized a bit of a ruined aspect. And over here at our block palette, you can see we have the same block palette from our previous stone build, but we've incorporated these new blocks here to add that ruined look to our whole build by adding, you know, leaves and mossy cobblestone, and we got andesite scattered throughout that as well. Also forgot mossy stone bricks. We got them as well over here, so they should be, you know, probably right there. And yeah, so just adding those simple blocks there gives us a bit of a ruined look as well. And yeah, so obviously there are a lot more block palettes throughout. This one's a little bit overboard in my opinion. I didn't build this, and I don't know who built this in my world. Also, I don't know what that's doing there. But you can see this is also utilizing a bit of a gradient, which we will also cover later in this video. But here's a really awesome build done by my good friend Extra Builds. And this is using a really nice block palette, using some mangrove logs, mangrove planks. We also have diorite and blackstone in the roof as well, and that just gives a very classic kind of barn look to it, and it just looks awesome, dude. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more block palettes out there in the world. I'm gonna leave them for you to discover because, again, it's not really my strong point. As you can see, a lot of my builds are mainly stone and spruce, which is something I definitely need to work on as a builder. So yeah, let's move on to the next segment. All right, let's get on to some detailing. Yeah, as you can see, right now I have just, you know, probably the noobiest kind of house you can make. It's literally just a square of spruce planks. I mean, there might even actually be a roof on this, but I've just left it off for now. And so I think what I'm just gonna do is just go through all of the details I would add to this to make this into the perfect medieval house. Starting off, of course, with the most important thing in my opinion, which is pillars. It's just gonna make this look way more like a house and instead of just, you know, a box. So let's first grab out some spruce logs, and we're going to replace our corner blocks with those logs. And as you can see, even with just that, it has made this look a little bit more like a house. The next thing we can actually do is connect those pillars up along the top here to have something like that, and that gives us an even better frame. And what I might also do is add in another log in the middle here that gives us two separated walls to work with. And I'm just going to quickly add this to the sides and also the back, so just give me a second. Okay, and here is our house so far now, and the next thing we obviously need to add is a roof to this. Now we could just do, you know, the old bog standard stair roof. This is pretty much, yeah, just the roof that everyone adds, and I mean it is tried and true, you know, it's going to work for everything. But there's a lot of different roof styles that you can try to definitely make your builds look a lot more interesting than, you know, just this kind of roof. Say you wanted something a little bit more mellow, you could go with a simple slab style roof like this, and that always looks good as well. But my personal favorite is to do a mixture of both of those styles. So we're going to start out with slabs like this for maybe the first 2.5, and then we're going to transition into stairs on the top half leading up to the top of the roof like this. And see, that way we get like a nice kind of like curved roof like that instead of just a straight angle, either really steep with stairs or really mellow with slabs. And that gives us like, yeah, just an interesting angle to work with. There's obviously a lot of different roof styles you can go with. You can go with something like this, where you kind of have a steeper slab style roof. You could do something like that, but put stairs on top instead to have it even steeper. Like something like that would go really high up. Those are good for really tall houses. So that's just a couple of different roof styles you can play with. And also what I recommend doing with roofs is using a trim block instead of the main block. Like instead of just using spruce for the entire roof, we could do a trim of stone and then use spruce for the inlay of the roof, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just gonna quickly get that set up and I'll show you how it looks afterwards. All right, and there is our new house. We've got the roof added on. We're protected from the rain now, and it's starting to look a lot better now. But there's a lot more things we can do to this to elevate it even further, with the next most important thing being some depth. Right now, all of the walls are very flat. They are literally just a single plane. And so there's a couple different ways we can actually add a lot of depth to this build, with the first one being to add some stuff on the kind of external part of the base. And my favorite thing to do is adding these little sticking out parts in all of the corner sections of the pillars here. I'm just going to do it to the front for now. But so even just that first thing already adds a lot of depth into this. And you can take it even further by maybe adding some stairs under these. You could add some spruce fences in between these, and then you could put maybe a lantern hanging from that to brighten up your base as well. You could also elevate this kind of pillar part further by maybe adding like some stripped logs at the bottom, and you could even add some fences in between those or something like that. If you wanted to go super extravagant, that looks good as well. And so you can see we've added a lot of depth to the kind of outside layer here, but on the inside layer, it's still very flat. And the next thing we can do for that is actually insetting the walls. And what that means is we're going to simply put the walls in by one block, and that gives us this whole layer here to add detail to. I'm going to do it to this other side as well, just to, you know, give us some more room to play with. Yeah, so in here, we obviously need to add in a doorway, and we could simply just slap slap in a door. Also, pro tip, add in, you know, your floor block on the bottom here. But yeah, so we could definitely just add our door in, but right now this looks very blocky, and my favorite thing to do is adding stairs above our door here, and that just makes that transition way smoother to the door, and yeah, I pretty much always do that without fail. The next thing we could do is adding a nice arch into this area here. It's always just the perfect detail to add, so we're going to add 2 stairs like that. We could elevate this further by adding in some trapdoors in between these, and that just makes that arch even smoother along there, and that looks perfect, man. Now we're going to keep the consistency going and add another arch on this side, and I reckon a nice window here would look really good as well. So we're going to employ this same tactic here by using a smooth transition into our window. So we're going to add that at the top and the bottom, and then we can add in our window block here. That could be like a fence, it could be a fence gate, it could be a glass pane if we wanted. Any one of those is going to look great. And now turning our attention down to the bottom here, we can do a lot of different things. We could add flowers, we could add azaleas. We could also do one of my favorite things, which is actually replacing this stair block here with a full block. And we're going to add some grass blocks along here, followed by some spruce trapdoors to cover up those exposed blocks. And then we could place in a flower here. We'd have to remove these to add in more flowers, of course, but that looks great as well. You could also, instead of doing that, you could do something like this. You could just have a single table, add our trapdoors back in, and then on there you could put any kind of decoration. You could put a lantern, you could put a flower pot with an azalea. I mean, that's obviously going to cover up all of the window, but yeah, you could put any kind of detail in there and it's always going to look good. Also, one extra thing we could do to add some depth on the outside here is just adding some buttons on here, whether that be wood or stone. That's going to look great. We could also add our lanterns back on there if we wanted, and now, yeah, that is looking like a truly detailed base. It might even be too much detail. At this point, I might actually remove these, and that just looks a lot kind of simpler, and yeah, I think that looks better than just having the rest of all that stuff. It was a little bit too much. You could even go as far as adding those trapdoors there as well. I think that looks good too. And so yeah, that's our house so far. Obviously, with these inset walls, we'd do this to all of the sides, but the only downside with inset walls is that you're going to have a much smaller interior, which does kind of stink. So you can see before we had all of that space, and now over on this side, we're going to have literally, this is going to be the size of our interior. So you kind of got to plan out, you know, if you're going to inset your walls or not, and you got to make your base a lot larger than you thought. But yeah, that's just about going to cover detailing and pretty much the exterior of house details and stuff like that. So let's move on to the next segment. Next, let's get into texturing and how that can actually improve a pretty simple build and make it look a lot nicer. So for instance, here we have this big kind of cliff thing in the water. Honestly, it's a pretty cool generation. I actually didn't build this at all, but something we can do to elevate this build even further is by adding some texturing to it. And all that is simply just sprinkling in a bunch of blocks that look similar to the original block. In this instance, we have stone, and we could use a number of different blocks like andesite, cobblestone, stone bricks. I usually like to keep it just 2 different blocks in total, for instance, stone and andesite, but you may want to mix in maybe like 3, 4, 5 different blocks. You could go as far as that. Like for instance, stone bricks here just definitely adds in a lot of extra detail to this as well. And that's just a really easy, simple way to make a build look a lot more complex than it actually is. And this extends to our house over here as well. We could add some texturing pretty easily to all of these walls, and it's going to make this base look a lot more complex than it does right now. So for example, a perfect texturing block that I would add to this is some stripped spruce logs, because they look very similar in color, but the texture is quite different. As you can see, we have kind of horizontal texturing here, but this way we have vertical texturing. I mean, you could place these like this if you wanted to, but I would almost always do that. And that's a really great texturing block for any kind of spruce like house build or anything like that. And also the thing with texturing is you want it to look pretty random, and that's going to mean putting blocks close together sometimes. So for one wall, I might do something like that, but for another wall, you may want to keep it kind of spread apart like that. You definitely don't want to have a repeating kind of pattern, I guess. Like this does look like a K, and I would kind of avoid that, and I'd probably just go with something like that. But yeah, obviously it'll take practice getting the perfect kind of texturing patterns. You can also use World Edit for this to texture a large area as well. So I'm just going to set this back to spruce planks, and we could do //set, and we could do spruce planks, and then a comma, and then our stripped spruce logs. And that's just going to texture it. Obviously that doesn't look very good, but let's do another one. That doesn't look very good either, but Yeah, see, that looks kind of good. I might actually even go in and kind of change that a little bit, but that's also a good way to kind of get an idea of how you might want to texture something. And it's a quick way of doing it too. All right, now on the other side of our big old wall here, I'm going to showcase gradients. And so gradients are kind of similar to texturing in that we're making a build look more complex just by simply replacing blocks. But this time, instead of just randomly scattering around blocks, we're going to make a specific pattern starting from the bottom and, you know, working our way up to the top. I'm actually going to make this more of into a flat wall to kind of illustrate this better. But yeah, so one of my favorite gradients is this one right here. We go from moss blocks, mossy cobblestone, mossy stone bricks, and then to stone bricks. And that just gives a really nice overgrown kind of look. And I love utilizing this kind of gradient in water here. So down in the water, it might be, you know, the most kind of mossy because water has been, you know, sitting on it for a long time. And so this might extend up kind of like this. Another tip with your gradients, you definitely don't want to do kind of a harsh gradient, like, you know, having all moss here, and then we're going to transition to mossy cobblestone and then stone bricks like that. You definitely kind of want to make it a little bit more loose than that. And so that might actually include making our moss maybe look like this or even that. Then we're going to transition into mossy cobblestone for our next block, like maybe something like that. And then to mossy stone bricks, and then finally stone bricks for the rest of our structure here. And that's just a really nice way to get an overgrown look. Now you can of course do this with completely different colored blocks, like you could go from black blocks to white if you wanted to. This is kind of the only gradient I've ever really used, and you can see that used here in my medieval dam build. We've basically got the exact same thing I just talked about. We've got moss blocks to mossy cobblestone, mossy stone bricks, and then finally into stone bricks, and that makes our dam look a lot more lived in and like it's been here for a long time. Okay, now it's time to start getting into the specifics. I'll be going more in depth with a bunch of different topics with things like interiors, houses, castles, pathways, and more, and I'll provide a bunch of my knowledge on all of those things. Starting off with interiors here. Let's just say this is the inside of your base at the moment. Obviously we don't have a roof. Don't worry about that. But you know, where do you start? How do you get started with an interior? And it's definitely a lot harder, I think, than an exterior, but it'll take a lot of time to learn, understand, and master. So basically the goal is to just fill up our interior with as much useful stuff as we can and just fill in all of the blank spaces with decorations and details, and most importantly, useful stuff. So let's just say, let's actually mark in our doorway here, because it's going to help us, you know, kind of design the interior here. So we're just going to say this is the door to our base. And so the first thing I usually take into consideration is where I want to put the bed, because I'm going to want to be quickly coming in here and just sleeping and then going back out if I don't have a bed, you know, in my inventory. This is specifically while playing survival, by the way, but I do like to take that into account, and I usually like to place it directly opposite the door as long as it's not too far away. So let's just make this our bedroom here. And so that leads on to the next thing, which is actually defining our sections. And if you have pillars like I do for our house here, I usually like to use those to kind of define our separated sections. So that gives us a 3-block wide section here to work with for our bedroom. And we could either add in a couple extra beds if we wanted to, or something else I like doing is adding in some bedside tables, whether that be, you know, out of some spruce logs or anything like that. And then the next thing I like to do is add a carpet with the same color of the bed kind of around in a ring like this. And then under the bed, as you can see, we still have stone here, so we can replace that with some red wool to kind of make it look like the carpet extends under there. And dude, these freaking pillagers keep spawning. I'm literally just going to copy and paste everything and move it away because they're pissing me off. Look at him. You're a little shithead, man. Okay, we're in a new spot. We don't have any pillagers annoying us. And yeah, so let's continue on with our bedroom here. So on top of our bedside tables, we could add in, you know, just any kind of decorations. I like to usually keep my interiors pretty bright, and so I like to add maybe a lantern on one side. You can even do a couple of candles if you wanted to. And then on the other side, I like to add in a flower pot with any kind of flower, and that always looks great for some bedside tables. Another thing you could do is also replace these tables with some barrels if you wanted some extra storage. And so obviously the top here is quite, it's quite empty, and we definitely need to add something up here, whether that be maybe a row of barrels. When I go with barrels, I like to usually make these look supported, and I do that with, whoopsie daisy, what am I doing? I like to do that with a nice kind of shelf design, whether that be something like this. You can kind of invert that and do something like that. You could even, if your interior is pretty high, you could make these up higher, add in your shelf design, and then you could maybe add in another shelf design here if you, actually, we really don't have enough space for that, so never mind. But yeah, you could go with barrels. Another thing I love doing is leaves. Let's add in 3 oak leaves where our barrels were, and then I like to usually surround these with trapdoors to make it look like, you know, it's kind of contained. And that's just a really nice detail to liven up your base as well. Make it look a little bit more lush too. And that right there is the perfect bedroom to me. Honestly, you don't really need to add much more to that. And so I'm actually going to move on to now the floor design. I kind of probably should have done this first, but that's okay. And so there's a bunch of different ways you could do floors. And the first thing I usually like to do is add in a ring of a different kind of block on the outside. So I reckon stone bricks would look quite nice for this. Oops, that's the wrong thing. I meant to do walls. Walls, stone bricks. There you go. And that just makes the floor look, I don't know, it looks a lot cooler to me. Another thing you could also do is a checkered pattern. So maybe instead of doing a ring, we could do a checkered pattern of stone bricks. Obviously, it's a bit more time consuming, but it's going to look a lot kind of cooler as well. So just something like that you could repeat throughout the whole base. You could use that for the pathway that leads throughout the base. And I feel like I just kind of want to make this look a little bit cozier. So what I'm going to do is actually add some spruce planks on the floor in this little square here. So I'm going to add a 2-block ring of stone around this. And I feel like that's just going to make the base look a lot cozier. And of course, I accidentally undid. So all of my crap here got undone, which is an absolute pain in the ass. But yeah, so with our floor done, let's move on to our next section. And we might make this into maybe a smelting area. So as you can see here, we have a corner section to work with, which is pretty good for anything that you want a lot more space for instance, furnaces. So let's do like an L shape of furnaces. And we could, if we wanted a lot of furnaces, we could do something like this. And for these top ones, we could definitely just add in like a little shelf design like this. Even I think that is probably going to look better as well. So yeah, if you want a lot of furnaces in your base, this is going to look perfect. Maybe if you're fine with just having like 8 furnaces or something like that, you could even just do something like this, and that allows you to put in some details as well. So maybe we could even put, a barrel like maybe in these corners to add some storage to our furnaces. You could even add barrels up here if you wanted to. And that of course allows us to add some details on top of these furnaces. For furnaces, I usually like to do kind of extinguished campfires, and that looks like fuel that would be used for the furnaces. I like to do like maybe amethyst buds as well. Flower pots also always look good, and lanterns too. And there you have it. That's a nice simple little furnace area. That looks awesome. Next, let's move on to crafting. And something I like to do for these is usually adding our solid crafting blocks along the bottom. And then of course, once again, adding a shelf, but maybe this time we could do a shelf kind of like this. I think this is going to look quite nice. And on here, we could put in maybe an anvil right there. We could put a grindstone on this one. Maybe up here, we could put a stone cutter, and then maybe just like a lantern on here or something. I usually like to put the transparent blocks, or like the semi, the blocks that aren't full blocks. They kind of have like, interesting shapes. I like to put them on the shelves, as it just makes it look, it makes it look better than just putting full blocks on there. That just kind of looks crap, So yeah, that's a pretty nice looking crafting area. We could of course add in more details on there if we wanted to. And now for our next interior module, we could do some storage. And for storage, I usually like to keep these pretty, chest heavy. You could of course make these look super nice by just doing something like this, maybe like adding... It's kind of hard in a corner actually to do storage. So maybe let's do storage on a flat wall like this. Yeah, so it'd be pretty easy to do just some kind of nice looking thing. But I usually like to keep these pretty, efficient in terms of storage. So let's maybe do some sideways chests like this. And literally something just like that. It doesn't look amazing, but you really need storage for survival. And I just kind of like to go all out with it. I would honestly just fill up all of these walls with storage. But if you wanted your storage to look super nice, you could definitely do something like this. Having like maybe barrels along one side and just having double chests up like this. If we had a bit more area to work with, let's just say we'd extend out into these pillars. We could add barrels on either side, and then we could do chests like this. If you wanted something super fancy, you could do maybe like a little shelf like that to hold them up. Obviously, you're going to get even less storage. So yeah, I'd kind of just recommend just sticking to adding as much storage as you can into one section. And so actually this corner might be the perfect spot to just kind of fill up entirely with chests. And honestly, to me, that looks perfectly fine. Now let's move on to our next section, which would be our brewing area. And for these, I like to keep them pretty unique looking, and I like to use polished andesite blocks, as it looks a lot like kind of like a table you'd work on. And so I might do something like that, maybe even actually something like that, and put our cauldron on this side, and then I'd have brewing stands on top of those. And sometimes instead of a cauldron, I like to actually use a spruce trap door kind of system like this. Actually, we might even do it like this, and then you can put water in that, and that way you have an infinite kind of water source that you can use for your potions and stuff. Obviously, that's clipping through that there, which is kind of annoying, so I might just do that to cover that up.